And a good afternoon. Thanks for joining for this tropical update presented by Malone Roofing Services. As always, we do appreciate our partners and our sponsors during this season, and Malone has been with us for a couple of years now. So big thanks to Malone Roofing Services for partnering up with us on the page during hurricane season. So today we are still tracking Tropical Depression number 9. It was Invest 99 last night, and now it's Tropical Depression number 9. Not surprising. This is expected. It's going to become a storm relatively soon. May already be a tropical storm out there currently. They are in the storm or in this system right now, flying into it, checking things out, investigating kind of that northeastern portion of the storm. And I don't think they can get the data back to the National Hurricane Center in time for the for the 5 o'clock update. So right now it's staying at 35 miles per hour, but don't be surprised if this thing comes in as a tropical storm really in the next few hours or so. It would be Ida if that happens, as we know by now. All right, so what has happened since last night until this afternoon? Well, we haven't had much change, honestly, and anywhere you look at it, that's not really good news. Still expecting this to develop pretty quickly. May wait until we get over Cuba and back into the Gulf. But currently, you may remember a couple of days ago I was talking about some scenarios. Originally when it looked like the storm, I don't even remember, it was down here or something, and we were saying, well, if it just kind of meanders this way, it might go to the west and straight into Mexico. And I was saying, well, maybe it would, if it does form a little bit more to the north. Well, it formed a little bit more to the north, and that was not the scenario that anyone wanted to see along the Gulf Coast. It formed more north. It formed more north and east. Honestly, it's somewhere like around here right now. So it's more north and east. It's consolidating pretty quickly right now, and it's going to eventually move into the Gulf of Mexico in the next couple of days or so. Another thing I told you to look for last night, if you were with me, I give you these little scenarios to look for, is where does it cross Cuba, or does it cross Cuba? Does it go between the Yucatan Peninsula? Does it cross the Yucatan Peninsula as well? So I gave you kind of 3 scenarios there. Does it go this way? Does it cross through the channel here, or does it go over the western side of Cuba here? Well, I don't have to tell you probably which scenario is going to play out there. This is way to the east. It's way to the east right now, so this is probably going to cut through the western side of Cuba, maybe even more east of where we were talking last night. So that does a little something to it, right? We'll see this thing. Oh, and I know I got someone in the Cayman Islands watching and around this area, and I told you last night in the page you probably expect tropical storm conditions, and I still stick with that as this moves in this direction. Hopefully it doesn't intensify too quickly, but at a minimum there, expect tropical storm conditions in the Cayman Islands. I wanted to get that out of the way first because I know we got folks from these areas that watch this channel, so thank you for that. So what does that mean? That means it's going to cross Cuba. Will that disrupt it a little bit? It might for a little while. And it'll be interesting to see what happens after it gets off of Cuba, because what we talk about, right? When it gets off of Cuba, it takes a little bit of time maybe to get its act back together. Can you have center relocations at that point? Yeah, you can, and you can have things kind of happen. So that maybe is the variable right now. There's always a variable to talk about, and that's something that we may need to watch for. But with that said, all indications are no matter what happens as it crosses Cuba, we're going to see this thing consolidate again back into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's going to have, it may not be perfect conditions in the Gulf, but it's darn near some of the most conducive atmosphere in the water, above. Dry air not going to be an issue. This thing is going to have really free reign to do it at once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go into it a little bit here. This is obviously what we're looking at, and told you yesterday it had that tropical look. It has more of a tropical look today already. So yeah, you can tell it's kind of in that developmental stage, and it may not happen as far as, it may not get that true tropical look before Cuba, and again, it may get disrupted a little bit as it moves over here, but once it gets in this area here, it's going to have a decent amount of time over that, and it's going to move into some very, very warm water and very low amounts of wind shear to deal with as well. So the storm's going to, like I said, have some pretty good environment to intensify. This is a zoomed in look at tropical depression number 9 right now. And, they're plotting the center, and you can kind of see some sort of spin. It's in here. And by the way, like I said, if you join late, they are in the storm as we speak. They're sampling things. They're plotting the center. They're seeing what's going on. Maybe the National Hurricane Center will have a special update or something between now and the 7 o'clock update, letting us know it's an official tropical storm. Not going to mean much really in the short term. We have you can obviously see some sort of spin there, right? And some sort of getting its act together there. So that's a look at the storm right now. Again, Cayman Islands. No, Carmen just said she's in the Cayman Islands right now, and they're already seeing some rain in that area. So we care about the Gulf Coast. We care about everyone, even folks in the Cayman Islands right now. But thankfully for y'all, it doesn't look like it's going to be really bad in that area, although you will see tropical storm force conditions. I'm sure y'all are used to that, and this is a welcome sight just if you can get just a tropical storm out of this one. So that's good for these areas. All right, let's get to not so great news here, right? Kind of hesitating and stalling a little bit. All right, so here we go. This is the latest from the National Hurricane Center, the latest 4 p.m. cone, 5 p.m. Eastern. Some folks in the Eastern time may be watching. All right, I don't want to leave y'all out. Here it is. Have we had a little bit of an east shift from the National Hurricane Center from the 10 a.m. advisory? And that's going to be common, right? We're not locked in officially yet. We'll probably see a few swings. We're in kind of a 3-day window, and I think the National Hurricane Center said, if I read that correctly, let me make sure I'm reading this correctly, there's still about 120-mile margin for error there, right? So we can still see some shifts back and forth. So expect that to happen until we are officially locked in. Like I said, there is a variable there as it crosses Cuba. By the way, tropical storm warnings in Cuba right now and Cayman Islands. That's the blue. And as this crosses over Cuba going into tomorrow afternoon, remember I always told you that the biggest time period was going to be tomorrow afternoon, early evening. It's going to be crossing Cuba back into the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the bad news. Once it gets into the Gulf of Mexico late Friday and into early on Saturday, all water the rest of the way, and it's not a very fast-moving storm, right? It's not going to stall, it doesn't appear, but it's not one of the ones that's going to zoom out of here like we saw a couple of those last year. It's going to have some time in the water, from 2 a.m. Saturday to at least about 2 p.m. Sunday. So what is that? That's like 36 hours? Is that math correct? So it's a decent amount of time, and here's some of the concern that I have with that. Remember, the shear is not going to be much of an issue. Here's that image right here. So right now it's dealing with a little bit of moderate shear on it right now. That's because of that upper level low that's happening on it. And you can kind of see that on this Mardi Gras map, as I call it. There's a little bit of a spin right here in front of it, but it's not as evident as it was yesterday. So that is kind of weakening a little bit. The hope was that it didn't weaken this tropical or this upper level low and could knock some shear. But right now it's still dealing with a little bit of shear from the southwest to the north, and that's why you see some of the storms being knocked up in this, I said knocked up, that's not good. Anyway, knocked off in that direction. That's because it's dealing with a little bit of wind shear right now from this upper level low. However, the upper level low is going to weaken a little bit. It's definitely weakened since yesterday, and it's kind of drifting in this direction. So that probably not going to be a problem for this thing. We're hoping that this thing could stay in close proximity to it, but I don't think it is. So right now, these red and yellow colors are the shear. It's dealing with some right now. But these little blue shades and these little teal colors there, what that tells us is, you can see down here, decreasing shear. Shear is probably not going to be an issue for this system. So check one off. That doesn't help. What else doesn't help? This right here, bathtub water. It's very warm in the Gulf right now. Right now where it is, we're looking at 82 to 83 degrees in the Gulf, or where it is in the Caribbean right now. But it is moving into water that is 84, 85, 86 probably, and probably some pockets of even warmer air where it's actually going to be moving into. This is what I'm talking about, that little loop eddy, and I'm sure you've heard about this little loop current, right? There it is, right? Bending into the Gulf right there. And so where does the track take it? Something like this, right? It's going to go through that very warm water. So the water is already warm, but it's even warmer where the storm is going to actually move through. So that's a concern. and the low shear is a concern, and then just the fact that the Gulf is kind of untapped this season. Yeah, we had Fred, and we had one earlier in the season, Claudette, but I can tell you right now, those did nothing to take any energy out of the Gulf, right? Sometimes you see that upwelling from storms, and they bring up some cooler water. It didn't do that. This is what we're dealing with right now, high energy content in the Gulf of Mexico. All this red right here, right? Highly favorable. That's what we got. So we have low shear, we have warm water, and we have dry air. That's probably not going to be an issue either. And so, yeah, those things add up to this is going to have a freedom to do it at once, and that's not what we like to see once we get into hurricane season. Remember, the early storms that we were tracking earlier this season were, June, July, early August. Not quite ripe yet, right? This is the week, though, late August into early September. These are the weeks that, storms in the past have usually happened, the ones that are memorable for all the wrong reasons. So we're in that time where we need to take this seriously. And yes, it did just become a tropical storm. I saw that update as well. Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that the depression has strengthened into Tropical Storm Ida. Okay, so we can call it Ida now. No more 9, no more Invest 99. It's Tropical Storm Ida. It's an ice storm. All right, so we're dealing with Tropical Storm Ida now. So let's look at Tropical Storm Ida. Let me reload this a little bit, knock out the radar here, and let's see. So let's knock that out, and let's bring up the active tropical track. There it is. Tropical Storm Ida, 40 miles per hour. It is currently moving northwest at 14 miles per hour. I'll take this cone. This is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. In a little bit more of a user-friendly method, right? So we can kind of zoom in and see what's going on. So Cayman Islands, folks in the Cayman Islands, Carmen, you're here, I know, maybe. 1 a.m. tonight, moves through. National Hurricane Center says about 50 miles per hour, right? It could strengthen a little bit more, and it moves through the Cayman Islands as a decent little tropical storm there. As it approaches Cuba, we're looking at 65 miles per hour potentially, and again, give or take, these are not exact, this is just a prediction from the National Hurricane Center. Maybe strengthens to 65 as it approaches Cuba and then moves over the western portion of Cuba there as we go into the next couple of days. Let me see here. Move this here. All right, hold on a sec. This is giving me a little bit of trouble. Let me reload this. Got a little freeze up going there. Computers. Yeah, we had a storm in New Orleans or Kenner area today. It knocked out the power, and the computer's been giving me issues for a little while here. So let's bring this back up. All right, anyway, it comes off of Cuba tomorrow. This point here is 1 a.m. actually. That's late tomorrow night into Saturday, and it could be 70 miles per hour. It'll be interesting to see, though. Let's see what happens when it crosses over Cuba. Maybe it disrupts it a little bit. Maybe it has a little bit of time that has to get its act back together. But National Hurricane Center says 70 miles per hour. That's going to be early on Saturday morning. Then it gets up to a hurricane at this point. This is 1 p.m. on Saturday, and this is 80 mile per hour max winds with gusts up to about 100 miles per hour at that point. Now, at this point, I think we'll probably start to see this thing taking that, tropical look that we don't want to see in the Gulf. But unfortunately, I think we're gonna. By this point, it's a 2. This is late Saturday into Sunday morning, 1 a.m. Gust, 100 mile per hour winds, gust up to about 120. And then the National Hurricane Center says, yes, it's gonna strengthen, possibly rapidly strengthen. Look, remember I showed you that loop eddy, the loop current and the warm water that's going to head into. There is the potential that this thing could overachieve what the National Hurricane Center is saying. So the National Hurricane Center is saying this is on the, they're bringing it in. This is, by the way, 1 p.m. on Sunday now, okay? 1 p.m. on Sunday. This is moved up a bit. Remember what I told y'all yesterday. This thing looked like it was north, and it could actually, the faster motion and the strengthening a little bit faster, and the faster motion could lead to a more eastward track than we were, and a sooner landfall. And that's what's happening here. So 1 p.m. Sunday, it's going to be very close to the coast, right? Might not be a nighttime landfall. I know folks always say it's a nighttime landfall, but this might not be. This is 1 p.m. on Sunday, and it's right there on the coast. And the National Hurricane Center says 110 mile per hour winds with gusts up to about 130. And yes, it is August 29th, and I know that has some not so good memories for folks. But yes, August 29th, 1 p.m. Now, with that said, 110, if that's what it ends up being, remember 111 and above is a Cat 3. We're 1 mile per hour below it. So can we get to major hurricane status? Easily. Okay, let me stress that. Easily can get to a Category 3 before this point, right? I mean, and that's what we got to watch for. It could be a 3 here. It very possibly could be a 3 there as it moves over the warm waters in the Gulf. This is 1 p.m. on Sunday, and they're saying 110. Now, if we're on the cusp of being a 3 at that point, easily could get that. I think it's probable we get that, to be honest with you. I think we probably do get to Cat 3 with this. Can we get to Cat 4? I don't know, right? I mean, that would be 130 or above. Is it possible? Certainly it's possible with the energy that's in the Gulf. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but don't be shocked if it does, is the point here. So nothing good, really right now that I can say that's going to stop that from happening. I would say absolutely prepare for a Category 3 hurricane here. Right now they're forecasting 110, and don't be surprised at the forecast coming after this if they do just forecast a 3. I mean, it's really not out of the question here, and I would actually maybe put it in a likely category that it becomes a Category 3. So prepare for that if that matters to you. I know it's just a category. Regardless, there's going to be a hit to southeast Louisiana with this. So, I mean, let's look at this, right? So let's zoom in a little bit. This is where the National Hurricane Center has the landfall. So we'll zoom in here, get a little bit of detail. This is the official forecast track. Now, before I do that, let me stress something to you here, that this is not a 100% landfall location. Okay, look, this cone goes still way over here to Lake, to the western portion of Louisiana, which would affect Lake Charles and all these areas. All right, that's where the western. Now, notice where the eastern part of the cone goes. So we're talking here toward the Alabama, Mississippi coast. Remember, equal shots on when you talk about the cone at the end here. So we are not locked in, or this is the current cone, but as we know, come on, we've been following these storms for so long now in the last few years, these things change. And this could certainly shift west or east, as we move forward here, especially with Cuba, being a little variable there. It's going to move over Cuba and it's going to get disrupted. We could see a center relocation, maybe south, west, east, north. I don't know where it would happen, but that happens sometimes as these things move over land masses, right? So there's still some room for margin of error. I will say that they are tightening greatly. I mean, Louisiana, look, we're under the gun here, right? From the western part to the eastern part, likely going to see some sort of impact somewhere along the coast here. But if you're in Biloxi, Mobile, Pensacola, these areas, look, if this does take a more eastward track, y'all are going to be on the eastern side regardless. This could be a rather big hurricane. And so there'll be some impacts there on the eastern side. So I just want to stress that to you. And this is, let me pull this up here because this is the key points from the National Hurricane Center. I think they're important to read, especially number 3 there, right? The system is going to approach the northern Gulf Coast at or near major hurricane strength on Sunday, and there's an increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge, damaging hurricane force winds, and heavy rainfall Sunday. And that's another thing I'll touch on in just a second is the rainfall. Sunday into Monday, especially along the coast of Louisiana. Storm surge and hurricane watches will likely be issued for a portion of this area later tonight or Friday morning. Interest in these areas should closely monitor, the progress. Now, there are obviously impacts that are going to be felt outside of the cone as well, right? When you have a hurricane like this, that is always the case. So, I just wanted to stress to you that it's not just going to be a Louisiana thing if it does take this particular track, although most of the impact will be around this area. We will see some impacts outside of it too, especially east and a little bit west as well. So it's really to see how this thing does evolve when it actually comes in here. So this is what I wanted to show you. Let's look at some models. This is the GFS model. And, this was from the... This is from noon. I don't think we have the 6 p.m. coming in just yet. Not yet. Probably in the next few minutes or so we can see what the new one says. And again, we'll see maybe some shifts back and forth a little bit, but right now this is the best that we can go by, and this is what we'll work with. So here we go. Right, it moves over Cuba, and this is tomorrow night around midnight into Saturday. Now it's in the middle of the Gulf. And, at this point, I think we just see steady strengthening all the way in. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't at this point. There's nothing right now that would show me that it wouldn't be able to just strengthen all the way in. Hopefully, and the hope is that it's not rapid strengthening, something that we see 30 or 40 mile per hour in intensity within 12 to 16 hours or so. We've seen it before. It can happen again. So I do want to tell you of that potential here. If you're saying, I won't leave for a 3, I would leave for a 4, we're going to be, I think we're going to toe the line here between these categories, but I really, really think a category 3 is more in the likely scenario right now. At least a category 3 here. I don't tell you this to scare you. I tell you this like I told you with Laura last year. I didn't like what I was seeing. And I think at some point we're gonna, it's a tropical system. It's trying to get its act together, and then all of a sudden, whoosh, there it is, in the Gulf. And hoping we don't see that, but all the signs are there that we could. So please, please, please prepare. Like this is going to be one of the bad ones, and really hope that it won't be. But I think we got to prepare like it is, right? All right, so let's move this forward, and you see not rapid, but steady strengthening, at least shown by the GFS, and then there's the landfall. Now keep in mind here, this is noon on Sunday. This is 6 p.m. on Sunday, so it's not a very fast moving system at landfall, right? It's not. Remember last year we had that one. I don't remember which one it was, but it was moving like 20 or 30 miles per hour or so. But this one's not going to be moving like zooming through, right? So we have here's landfall at noon Sunday or close to it, 6 p.m. on 6 p.m. Sunday, and then this is midnight on Sunday, and then look, it finally starts moving out. There is going to be a major concern for flash flooding from rainfall. This is going to bring all the hazards with it, okay? And yes, look, I can't advise on evacuations. I just can't, because I'm worried about myself and what we're going to be doing with the family. We haven't even made a decision yet. You really, if y'all don't feel comfortable, you feel like you got to leave, you have somewhere to go. If you don't feel comfortable where you are, then just make the decision and go and hope nothing happens. You can come back. It's a weekend, right? So like it's you can leave on a Saturday and get back maybe Monday morning. That's for you to make the decision on that. I really can't advise on that because I can't tell you specifically in each and every area. I get questions like that. I'm in this North Shore neighborhood. I'm over here. How do you think the conditions are going to be? I don't know exactly what conditions are going to be in every single area because it's different, right? Sometimes neighborhoods flood more so than others. Sometimes other neighborhoods handle things well. They're built a little higher, maybe. Everything's different. Your area best. And if this looks uncomfortable to you and you don't feel like you're going to be comfortable there, then just get out. Life's more important, and if you don't feel comfortable and you think you'd be stressed while you're here dealing with it, then if you have the means to do it and you can get out, then just make the decision and get out. There's going to be obviously a likelihood of power outages, right? So yeah, there's going to be that as well. So, all right, here's the GFS. This is another, the European model, kind of the same thing. Now, the European model is a little bit west of where the GFS is, but they both, I think the most important thing that I've been stressing here is, yes, the models are not exact as far as landfall, but they're all indicating one thing: strengthening all the way to landfall, which usually makes these things that much worse when you have a storm that strengthens all the way to landfall and makes landfall while it's strengthening. So that's always not something you want to see, strengthening all the way in. This is the GFS model, and right now you can kind of see, as we looked at this map right here, the darker colors, the darker purples or whatever, this is kind of some of that dry air there. It's not going to be enough to do anything to it. That's what the GFS is indicating right here. But watch what happens as we move forward here. As this comes in, the atmosphere around it and really all the way in turns that green color, which tells us that the atmosphere is going to be nice and moist, in the Gulf, for this thing to develop. There may be some dry air trying to wrap in at the very end, but it's not going to be enough to do anything to it. It's already in and made landfall at that point. So that's kind of what I was kind of showing with the, what's going on there. Obviously, we talked about this scenario last night when you have this, high pressure right now. It's kind of bolted in right around North Carolina area. It's not the setup we want to see for the Gulf Coast. This is the worst setup you can have. It kind of just funnels everything in, right? And this one will just, right here is where it's centered, and it's just going to ride right around it and in somewhere, right? Now there can be some error there, right? Is it weaker? Is it stronger? And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. If it's a little bit, that's kind of what we're looking at as far as the west and east movement. So, all right, so that there's that, and then this is a look again. I don't show you these things to. This is not. I don't create these models at night. I don't draw them to scare people, but this is how it could evolve. Okay, so watch what's going to happen here. As it comes through, we see the potential for some strengthening up to where we get to Cuba, right? So that's going to be late tonight into tomorrow morning, right? We see some strengthening there into Cuba. Potential 65, 70 miles per hour before it gets to Cuba, maybe. And then as it crosses Cuba, we see a little bit of disruption here that I was talking about, right? This is going to be on early Saturday. So this is late tomorrow night into early on Saturday. It's crossed Cuba. It's back into the Gulf now. We probably have a little bit of disruption of the storm. It doesn't look as good maybe, and hopefully that lasts long, right? Hopefully it doesn't get its act back together. It has happened in the past, by the way. If you go back to Gustav was forecast, I believe, to be a Category 4 at landfall. It crossed over the western tip of Cuba, and it never really got its act back together and made landfall as, I think, a 2. It was bad still, but it was originally forecast to be a 4, and it got down to a 2 and never recovered. And the western tip of Cuba is mountainous, and it kind of did something to it on the way, and it never really got its act back together. We can hope that's the case here, but again, we're not going to pretend like that's going to, we can't say that's definitely going to happen, but we look for little things that could happen, and we hope they do, but again, that's not a likely scenario. All models are indicating that once it gets back into the Gulf, probably, I'd say by Saturday afternoon, early evening is when we're going to start seeing something in the Gulf that we don't want to see. Because watch as this thing starts to kind of consolidate there. This is Saturday evening going into early on Sunday. And then by the time we get into Sunday morning and early on Sunday afternoon, this thing has expanded into a full-blown hurricane. So with that said, if we are looking at this on the Louisiana coast, obviously we're going to have some significant surge on this side moving in, and this is going to extend well east too, y'all. So over here along Pensacola, Mobile, into the Mississippi Gulf Coast, into St. Bernard Parish, all these areas here where are very vulnerable, and along the coast as well, especially outside of the levee protection there. You have all this water that's going to be east of the system. So we're going to have water rise along a lot of the Gulf Coast here, stretching all the way over toward the Florida Panhandle as well. It's not going to be devastating surge in that direction, but certainly you're going to see the water pushing in more than you have for a while. So if this is actually the orientation of it. In addition to that, we have the rainfall, the bands that are going to be pushing in, right? With this. So we have the rainfall as well. And we're going to have those long training rain bands that probably are going to stay over the same area over and over again, drop too much rainfall, or probably have some flash flooding. Again, hard to predict where it's going to happen, but there's going to be a lot of rainfall from this. And you can look at this GFS model here as this moves in. So there you go. So it moves in there. This is the best estimate, right? If it would come in somewhere around here, I don't know the exact spot, but obviously the heaviest rainfall is going to be to the north and east of the actual center where it comes in. And these yellow colors here indicate, if you look at that graph, you can't really see it, but these are like around this area, right? This is about what we're seeing about color there. So 12 to 16 inches, maybe locally higher in some spots. Again, it's not going to be a very fast moving hurricane. It's not going to be stalled, but it's not going to be zooming through here. So we are going to see a lot of rainfall on top of the other hazards, the wind, the surge. The rainfall is going to be an issue as well. And as we go inland here, we're going to really need to keep an eye on a few different things. Obviously the surge, but also the potential to see too much rain, and at several inches of rain. We'll have to check on the river levels as well moving forward here. Remember, as the tropical system comes in initially at landfall, it's also going to be moving to the north here and still dropping rainfall up here, which eventually all flows back this way in the streams and rivers and all. So lots of things that are going to have to be watched here. The inland flooding threat is always, it's maybe not the primary threat with these systems, but it is a big threat with these tropical systems. So something to keep in mind there. The H-Wharf shows, again, kind of similar to the GFS, right? We start to see this thing intensify close to Cuba. As it moves over Cuba, it gets disrupted a little bit right there, right? This is early on Saturday morning. We're seeing a little bit of disruption from the storm. And then once it gets back over the Gulf, again, Saturday late afternoon, evening, we're going to see something in the Gulf we don't want to see probably. And then toward the end, which is always not the best. And again, look, the H-Wharf, by the way, is more west of where the GFS and the National Hurricane Center has this. And that's when I said keep in mind, the cone is big still and can still go more to the west a little bit, remember, and then this thing makes landfall. That's more west of where the GFS has it. But the point is that, again, the strengthening is the concerning part to me right now, is what most models are indicating. H-Wharf, another look at it, right? And one thing I want you to notice are the millibars, right? As it moves to the central part of the Gulf through that eddy, and then look at that, how it continues to intensify. The H-Wharf brings it down to 943 millibars. That would be intense. That may be stretching it close to Category 4 if that would verify. So a lot to watch over the next day or so heading into this weekend. I would imagine, once we get the tropical storm warnings, hurricane warnings, whatever they're going to be, I'm sure they'll announce some sort of evacuation plans once we get a little bit closer and we know for sure where this is going. This is going to evolve quickly, though. We're not talking about the middle of next week. We're talking about Sunday at this point. We're talking about potentially Sunday during the day as well. So, again, it's not a very long time period to prepare for this. It's going to evolve quickly during this weekend. This is what the GFS, and I want to specifically zoom in here to Saturday night and just kind of show y'all the potential of the onshore flow. Let's go to like 10 a.m. on Sunday. So at this point, you can see this is, again, don't think this is exact. This could change a little bit, but this is the current GFS model here. And again, you know where the flow is around these systems. So at this point along the coast there, you have that onshore push of water all on this area right there. And then as we move forward here, so as we make land, so let's just say this is where the landfall would be. Again, not exact, but this is what we'll go with. Let's see, those wind gusts probably be higher than that, honestly. All right, let me go back to the, hold on a second. All right. So anyway, if this makes landfall, GFS takes it, very close to like Grand Isle, Dulac, Cutoff, Port Sulphur, all these areas here. Remember the surge into here would be around the eastern part of the system, and all along the coast there you'd have surge moving in. On this side it would be better because you have that offshore flow around the western side of the storm there. So that's where the GFS puts it. Landfall, again, this is 3 p.m. Sunday, so it's looking like maybe Sunday afternoon. Again, that time can change as far as that goes. That's the GFS. And someone asked about the Euro. Euro is slower and a little bit more to the west. Okay, so keep that in mind. The more east it makes landfall, the sooner the landfall is going to be. So this is the European model. And this is Sunday at midnight, so that would be late Sunday heading into Monday morning. And you can see where their landfall is, so that would put Dulac in these areas east of the center. So big difference there as far as who would see some of the biggest impacts there along the coast. And they actually take it inland here, closer to Morgan City, and that would be, it's around like Morgan City and Patterson area. And that would be late Sunday heading into Monday morning. That's 3 a.m. there. That is the European model. So there is still some spread there, right? It's not set in stone just yet, and there will still be some spread. You can kind of see this is kind of the model the model suite the National Hurricane Center uses a little bit. I posted this to the page, and we got models over here, and we got models way over here as well. I mean, yeah, look, it's tightening up. All right, we're getting to that point now where it's tightening up a little bit, with a variable being the National Hurricane Center or the Air Force Reconnaissance. They're flying in it. They're in the storm right now. And so they're going to get that center plotted. And so the models that run tonight, I think that'll be, they're sampling the air. They got the center plot in there. So, that'll mean a little bit. Let's see what the models this evening say, and see if we have any sort of deviation from this. But we're at that point now where it's tightening up a little bit. And that tells us that we're seeing a little bit more confidence in where this thing is going to go. And, if you're around this area on it, obviously you don't want to see that at this point. I mean, we don't want to wish this on anyone. But I think that, we're at that point where we don't have an escape route anymore. We got high pressure blocking this thing over here. We have the high over here blocking it. It's not going out to sea. That scenario's out. And there's nothing that's telling us that it's going to go this way. It's going to follow the path of least resistance, and that's around that high. It's going to follow it and curve over it. Unfortunately, we're in the way. Some of us here in the Gulf Coast are going to be in the way of where this thing is going. But the confidence is increasing, and I'm sure we'll see some shifts back and forth a little bit. Like I said, I think we'll see a few more shifts back and forth. Again, the margin for error is there at the end of the track. But it's looking more and more likely that Southeast Louisiana is gonna see a pretty significant hurricane making landfall this weekend. It's just a matter of where that actually happens. But again, these things are not one size fits all. The impacts are not only felt around the center. We have impacts that may be felt well around it. East of it especially, where you're going to have rainfall. And with a storm like this, it's not going to be one of those storms that we talked about earlier in the season that's heavily stacked in the east and the western side has nothing. No, this thing could be well-rounded and have some decent hits on the western side. The winds on the western side and the western eye wall are still going to be strong. Now you'll have the offshore flow in that side, which would be a little bit better. But we'll have lots of rainfall. And I think rainfall is going to be a big threat here. I really do. I know we talk about storm surge, which those estimates are going to be coming out soon from the National Hurricane Center, I'm sure, as we get a little bit closer. We talk about storm surge, we talk about winds, and those are the two big impacts close to the coast and even inland with hurricanes. But that inland rain and flooding threat is there as well. So it really has to be talked about with this one, because, again, it's not going to be moving extremely fast, and it's going to be dropping a lot of rainfall as this thing makes landfall as well. So something to watch for there. These are the intensity models right now. You can see the majority of them take them in the 2, 3, a couple of them take them in the 3 range there. Most of them take them at least into category 2. Like I told you before, I really think category 3 is almost in the likely category right now. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're probably going to get to category 3. Could we get higher category? I won't take it off the table, right? I wouldn't rule that out. But right now, the best National Hurricane Center currently is predicting the very top of category 2 that you can get to. 111 is cat 3. They're predicting 110 for the winds. So we're talking about they're predicting the very top of cat 2, could easily get to cat 3, and I always say prepare for a category higher. So if you're at the very top of cat 2, I would prepare for the very top of cat 3 with this one. And hopefully that doesn't happen. But like I was showing y'all earlier, the fuel for that to happen is certainly going to be there in the Gulf of Mexico. All right, let me pull that back up right there. I'll keep it there for a minute. And I know we got a lot of comments here. Let me just let me see what's going on. Let me see what kind of question. I got to zoom all the way up here, but let me see if there's anything going on. All right, could this shift back west? Certainly. Look, there's the cone. That's what you got to look at. The National Hurricane Center's cone. It's still wide. Okay, we still got the cone all the way to the west, almost to like the border of Louisiana, Texas, right, and all the way to the east for Alabama, Mississippi. So the cone is still wide at the end there. Certainly can still see some shifts here. And I think one of the biggest variables, like I said earlier, is when it crosses Cuba. We do see some disruption to the center, obviously, and sometimes we see some relocation happen there, and that can affect the tracks. It's happened before in the past several times. So yeah, there can certainly be some shifts. How you doing, Sarah? Good to see you on here. Melissa, thanks for joining. I don't know if y'all still on here, but y'all were on early, so thank y'all. Do you think it's going to hit as a Cat 3? Like I said, I think that's a very realistic possibility that we see a Category 3 here. I almost put it in the likely category at this point, that we could see at least a Cat 3 here. Let's see. Long Beach, thanks for joining. Margie, good to see you on here. Baton Rouge, Cindy, thanks for joining. Yeah, Jerry says we were without power for 3 weeks during Katrina. Yeah, Katrina was another next level type thing, right? Pensacola watching. Michelle, definitely keep watching over there from Pensacola, because again, if this thing does take a more east track, obviously those areas, Mobile and Pensacola, will be a lot more affected. And the way this thing is coming in, by the way, I mean, the way it's coming in, we've seen a significant shift from a couple of days ago from where the center actually formed. And so that's why the shifts have, I mean, remember, this thing was originally going into Mexico, and then it kind of shifted to Corpus Christi. It kind of kept sneaking along. Then it's Galveston. Then it's the Texas-Louisiana border. And then it just kept shifting east. So, I mean, look, we could still see a little bit of a shift. So keep watching from those areas, because even if you don't get the center, y'all are going to be on the east side for this, and that's where the nasty stuff happens a lot. You got those bands coming in with those tornadoes that can form. This is not going to be good for, this is going to affect a lot of people along the coast here if things happen that could happen. It looks like could happen with this thing. So something to keep in mind there. How you doing, Blake? Good to see you on here. Excuse me. Let's see. We'll move into a new house on Tuesday. Oh, geez. Yeah, they're going to test that early, the roof, right? Get sleep whenever you can. You're gonna be Amy, I know it's hard, easier said than done, right? Please be sharing this info. Thanks, kid, I appreciate that. Yep, Laura, it could be a very big one. Both east and west side feeling some sort of impact from this. Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy, for the stars. Appreciate that. Does Hope, I don't know if you're still on here, but does Ida look like a rainmaker or wind event? It's both. I remember the earlier storms in the season I mentioned this already, but it's good information to get out again. The earlier storms this season were rainmakers, right? We weren't worried about much with the wind. They were primarily were going to be rainmakers. This brings everything with it. This brings storm surge, this brings wind, this brings rain. Rain could actually be one of the bigger impacts here after you get through the initial impact closer to the coast with the surge and the wind that'll be felt. This is going to drop a lot of rain, with this system. A lot of moisture coming up. And, maybe we can get some dry air into it at the end that maybe chokes off a little bit, but we can't depend on that to happen. This one looks like it's going to impact some areas. Pretty decent impacts for a lot of folks. Kaylin, I lost service, but do you think this thing could go back west? Look, that's the cone. That's why I'm keeping it up right here. You see where the cone is? I mean, that's some margin for error there toward the end, okay? I still think we'll see, it may not be dramatic shifts, but there'll still be little shifts here back and forth. This is just the current projection of where the center could come on. It's where the center line is, but again, it's hard to judge with these things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the most likely spot. That's just the center of where the cone is. There are equal chances on either side here, okay? So if you're in the cone right now, you need to pay attention to the storm, okay? Only because it's going to be a decent hurricane. You got to pay attention to this. Don't think you are out of the woods just because that center line is not near you. This thing could easily shift again, as we've seen dramatic shifts over the last 1 to 2 days or so. So yeah, this could happen. No problem, Heather. Appreciate you on here. Appreciate you being a supporter too. Thank you for that. Yeah, okay, this is why now why I dislike August and September. Yeah, they're not fun months along the coast, right? Add October too. Right? We get into October. Zeta was October, what, close to Halloween last year. These things go for a little while now. Watching from Colorado Springs. Good to have you on here, Joanne. Thanks for joining. Oh, the lights flashed just now. Hopefully, the lights went out earlier. We had a lightning strike. Had some decent storms here earlier. That really helped us out to clean up a little bit outside. Nope, not happening today much, and we ended up getting some things clean, so that's good. Tropical Storm Ida now. Yep, it's Tropical Storm Ida. I'm going back way back here. Okay, let's see. I heard back. There's a Michelle says, I've heard there was a second hurricane coming to the Gulf of Mexico towards Louisiana and Texas. Are you seeing this? One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Michelle will. One thing at a time. Let's see. Pensacola see effects, maybe. Lisa, maybe. East of the system, we could see some effects there in Pensacola depending on how it comes in. So keep watching from there, certainly. Terrebonne Bay, yeah, could be affected by this. Reagan, if could always be at night. I might have said it was night. This looks more like maybe afternoon, early evening landfall. So we'll see. It might not be nighttime this time. Yes, it is. It is the same day, the 16th anniversary of Katrina, right? Thank you for that wonderful anniversary gift. Let's see. We live 3.5 hours on the coast. Jeez. First thought 1 a.m. Yeah, I think you're totally right, Angel. I mean, it's certainly something. You prepare in these situations for the worst, right? This has the potential, obviously, to be pretty big storm with decent impacts, but you got to prepare for it that way, and you just really hope something happens that maybe it's not as bad. I would love for y'all to say I hyped this thing up after and it ended up being nothing at all. That would be great. But it would be irresponsible of me to not give you the information that's possible for this thing to become. And if that makes me a bad person and people say I hyped it up, well, that's fine. The last thing I want somebody saying is you didn't tell me it could get this bad. Well, you won't see that on here. I can promise you that. Megan says, could this keep ticking east toward Florida? I think a Florida landfall is a stretch, but notice where the cone goes, right? I mean, if it takes that extreme eastern portion of the cone, that takes it around the Mississippi, Alabama coast. Obviously, there'd be some pretty decent impacts there along the Florida Panhandle if that would happen. No problem, Gretchen. Appreciate you joining here and being a supporter. Thank you for that. Mother Nature is a cruel heifer, Lisa says. Yeah, you're right. I don't think anybody's in disagree with that. So in the current trajectory, I see somebody asking about New Orleans impacts. If it comes in at that current trajectory where it's forecast to come in, that's going to put New Orleans Metro, Kenner Metro, all these areas. Obviously, I'm in Kenner. This track is not ideal. It's not an ideal track for me either. But taking myself out of it a little bit and telling you what we're looking at. Yes, the New Orleans metro area and a lot of areas here would be east of the center and have some of the worst winds, impact, rain, all kinds of things in there, right? That if it comes in, if the center line comes in like that, yeah, that would put those areas on the eastern and the worst side of the storm. Jennifer says, I just want to form a formal complaint. I'm against this forecast. Okay. No problem. I'm just the messenger, by the way. I'm just the messenger of this stuff. I don't create these. I don't create these storms, and if I did, I'd kill it right now. But yeah, this is just the messenger. So be kind. Michael says I got my water, booze, generator, and fuel yesterday because my gut told me to. Well, your gut probably is correct here. Jennifer says, remember my people, red wine does not require refrigeration. That may come in handy after this, right? Chloe, which direction would you evacuate from New Orleans? It's really going to depend on where it comes in, right? Because if it's more east, if it would come in like right over the city, well, then I'd tell you to go west. You want to be west of where the center comes in, and I mean, it depends on how far you go to the west. You may still see some effects of it, but you want to be west of where the center is. Always, unless you go far enough east, right? You need to get you see where the center line is right now and where the cone is. You probably want to go outside of the cone in either direction if it would take that center line. And then if you'd move the center line more west, well, then expand that in that direction as well. You really want to get outside of where the cone is, so you'd be safe if this thing shifts a little bit. So, but you definitely want to get west. Would be the better side, unless you're going east far enough. North is not ideal because the storm comes in north and then hooks in that direction. You're going to get into a lot of rainfall and some flooding possible up there as it moves in, and then it'll be hell to get back in coming back to the south. So I mean, I don't think north is ideal, maybe northwest a little bit, but it's hard to say. But I would say definitely expand outside of where that cone is to ensure, to give yourself a little bit of insurance there if this thing shifts a little bit. So it's the best I can kind of give you there. I don't like advising on evacuations. Again, I think that's your decision. If you don't feel safe to get, definitely get out if you have the means to do so. Let's see. Let's go back to this. See what we're looking at here. There it is. All right, let me see some more comments here. Do you see it shifting back west? It's always possible, Tracy, that we could see, shifts a little bit back to the west. It depends on how far you're talking to the west. Obviously, the margin for error is still 120 miles in either direction. So there's still some margin there at the end of the cone. This is just the best available track that we have right now, right? And we prepare like it's going to happen, but y'all have been tracking these with me. It sometimes doesn't, and we see some shifts toward the end. So it can still happen, without a doubt. No problem, Jody. Thanks for joining here. Trisha asked which model performs best usually. I mean, each model has their day of glory, right? They, the GFS has, to me, been better lately. The Euro used to be king, right? Used to call it King Euro. No, don't call it that anymore too much. It's struggled recently where it's been amplifying the ridges a little bit too much and making them a little bit too strong and sending things a little bit too far to the west a lot of times. But with that said, a broken clock does work twice a day. I'm not saying the Euro's broken. What I'm saying is that the GFS, as of late, has been performing a little bit better. It actually pegged the early portion of the storm better. Remember, the GFS was the one that went a little bit more east first and foremost and said that the storm was going to form faster and more to the north, which it did. Look where that storm is right now between Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. And the Euro the other day had this thing going through the Yucatan and way to the west. So sometimes the GFS gets it done better and the Euro conforms to it, and that seems to have happened here. That's not to say that with this storm, in the later portion, maybe the Euro handles it better, but so far, the GFS has handled this storm better than the European model. So take it for what it's worth. That's why they use a bunch of different models there, not just two, right? There's a lot of them that they use to kind of come up with things. Shelly, I think it is strong enough to keep it from a direct hit to Pensacola, Florida. The actual center moving in that direction. I think that high will stick, at least to keep it out of there. Dustin, what effects will be felt in the Fort Walton, Destin area? Again, depending on how far east the center actually goes, obviously if it takes the more eastern portion of the track, then y'all would have more rain bands, a little bit more water push for a storm surge, a little bit. Not going to be devastating storm surge, but the water's going to be high. Maybe some tropical storm force winds in that direction. Again, it's just going to depend on where the center comes in. With that said, I think you're okay in that area. you may get some of those tropical rain bands set up. So, I expect to be impacted a little bit. You'll feel something. You'll feel there's something in the Gulf, obviously, but I think you're far enough east that it's not going to be anything you'd have to really worry about. That's if this track holds. Now, if we get a shift east, a drastic shift east, well, things might change for your area. But right now, I think you're good. Trish, it Natchez, Mississippi, obviously, as it moves north, there could be some impacts for that area. So, we might see some rain. Obviously, we could see some winds as it hooks off in that direction. I mean, I would think rainfall is going to be the biggest threat in that area, but you could see some tropical storm force winds as well as it hooks off in that direction. But I think rainfall obviously would be the biggest threat. The potential to see some flash flooding as it moves in that direction. And if the thing holds together, I think you could see some tropical storm force conditions too as it hooks off to the northeast. So again, I try my best to do, and I know y'all want to know how it's going to be around your city. Sometimes people ask around their neighborhoods. It's very detailed. Do my best to try and give you impacts. It's so hard as the thing is way down there still to be able to say this is what it's going to be like around a certain neighborhood, because again, any shift back and forth can change that. You could see, I try my best to kind of narrow that down a little bit, but it could be a little different than when it actually happens. No doubt, Deborah, definitely some concern there in Pascagoula. So the hurricane hunters are out there right now. That's why the National Hurricane Center at 4 p.m., they had this as a tropical depression still. As we were doing this live video, they upgraded it to a tropical storm. They're in the storm currently. Let me see, are they still in there right now? Yeah, they're actually still in the storm right now. So we'll see what they're finding out there. It looks like they're maybe finding some flight level winds into the 50 to 55 mile per hour range right now. So we might see a bump up in the winds coming later at the 7 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. We'll get a new cone at 10 o'clock, but right now we're not going to have a new cone until we get up to 10 p.m. So, but they might increase the winds at 7 o'clock, because we get the 4 p.m. We have an intermediate update at 10 p.m. I'm sorry, at 7 p.m. They just update the positioning and the winds and pressure and things like that, and then they'll get another full update at 10 p.m. with a cone and winds and all kinds of new stuff. Discussion comes out. So they got the full updates at 4 and 10, and then intermediate between that. And then I think as we get closer to landfall, they'll update every hour or two for winds. So they'll be flying into this the entire time now. So from now until landfall, they'll be flying into this thing. They'll put some new, some new coordinates or some new data. They'll sample the air. They'll get the center plot, the models, I think, that run this evening. There'll be a new model run coming out at like 8 p.m. We might have the data from the National Hurricane Center in at that point. If we don't have the ones for 8 p.m., then we'll have them certainly for 2 a.m., I would think. So I'll definitely update y'all on those and see if we see any change with some more precise data that are going to be put into them. No problem. From Tally Chic, Joel, thanks for joining. No problem. Thank you for watching. Lindsay says the Yeti must be sleeping. Yeah, haven't seen him in a while, right? Okay, now Ryan says a new GFS is out. Let's take a look at the GFS. Thanks for reminding me about that, because certainly would have forgotten. All right, let's go. This is the first time seeing this with y'all. Let's update this. All right, let's see if it changes at all. Let's see if we have anything different here. This is the 6 p.m. GFS. Looking at this for the first time with you. All right, so we have strengthening happening. It crosses over Cuba, and then we have motion toward the north. Yeah, didn't really change much, did it? Still has the crosshairs there on southeast Louisiana. Did bump up the pressure a little bit to 960. It's not in the 955, 953 range anymore. Maybe that indicates maybe a little weaker at landfall. I don't know. You can't really. I'm just so like I don't get my hopes up or get too scared sometimes with intensity forecasts because they're just so hard and they're just not accurate. These things when you see something that's supposed to be a 1 or a 2, it becomes a 3 or a 4. When you see something that's supposed to be a 3 or 4, it only stays a 1 or 2. So I've seen it go both ways, and so like the intensity forecast, I think they're indicating right now that we're going to see intensification in the Gulf, and I think that's the only thing we need to take from that is that the conditions are right, and we're going to see this thing intensify. How much is it going to intensify? That remains to be seen. But obviously, we hope it's not going to be rapid intensification once it gets to the Gulf. Yeah, that's the same type of thing that we saw earlier. All right, let's see. I'm still going through y'all's comments. So not much change there from the GFS, by the way, in case you didn't notice that. Still got a landfall somewhere around southeast Louisiana. All right, let's see what's going on here. I'm trying to... Taylor just joined. Sorry if he answered this. Any chance for the Houston area? Houston's becoming... it's looking a lot better for the Houston area. That would be a very one of the outliers solutions right now. No models have it going in that direction, actually. So something would have to drastically shift for Houston to be, under the gun there for the storm. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for joining the page. Good to have you on here. Thanks for following. Yeah, y'all tag your friends. Tag your friends if you want to see what's going on. Let them know about this page. Appreciate y'all sharing a lot of the things I've been posting. Yeah, I was trying. This is the only version, Laura, of the video. I didn't. I'm just answering people's questions. I didn't think it was too often too unrelated to what's going on here. But yeah, I'm just yeah. Lauren, it will be posted on the page. I'm gonna wrap this up in a little while, and then the full version will be posted on the page, so you can press play and start from the beginning. I'd like to talk about the system and talk about the storm, the latest on it, at the beginning, and then I try to look down at the comments. Sometimes it's a little bit distracting, though, with some of the things that are being talked about. But at the end, I will scroll through the comments to see if there's anything to talk about. Let's see. Having trouble locating the center on satellite. It's hard to see right now. They're plotting it, right? This may be more of kind of a mid-level swirl we have there, but it's somewhere in there. It's not. You're not going to see look, it's somewhere in this area. I don't know the exact location, but it's in here somewhere. You can see kind of a broad spin there. We won't maybe see that it show up. At some point this thing's probably going to have a darn eye. So at that point we'll see it. Right now it's hard to pick out, but you can see some sort of swirl in there. No problem, Tiffany. Appreciate it. Yeah, Malone Roofing about to get some business. Yeah, go like their Facebook page. Go if y'all ever deal with Malone, tell him you saw him from Gulf Coast Updates. Certainly appreciate that. Heather, we go live tonight around 10 or 10:30. Yeah, it'll be between 10 and 10:30. I'm sure Tropics After Dark, right? Yeah, I'll be on here. There's no doubt about it. All right, I'm back live on y'all's chat. Cool. All right, so that is the latest on Ida, not Tropical Depression 9, Ida now. There it is, right? It's in that developmental stage, and clearly you can see something in here, right? It's starting to get that tropical look to it. That's Jamaica there, and the Cayman Islands about to be moving through there. Thankfully for them, it does not look like it's going to be a horrible storm. They, I'm sure, have weathered this type of thing before. Tropical storm conditions can be expected in the Cayman Islands right now. Lots of rainfall heading Jamaica. This is going to be heading toward Cuba and then into the Gulf of Mexico. during the weekend. This is the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. There it is. You can see it crosses Cuba tomorrow afternoon. It's back into the Gulf tomorrow night. And then we see that once it gets back into the Gulf tomorrow night, it's all water the entire way, and very, very warm water. Lots of energy still in the Gulf for it to tap into. The hope is it's not going to go through one of those rapid intensifications, but it certainly is on the table that could happen, and it might happen in the last 12 to 16 hours or so as this thing is about to make landfall, which I'm telling you makes these things so much worse when they're strengthening at landfall versus weakening at landfall. So the hope is that it's not going to happen, but we have to prepare like that's going to be the case. Hopefully this thing stays as a Category 2. I don't think we're going to get anything less than a Category 2 at this point. But like I told you before, I really think Category 3 is almost in the likely category, and let's cap it at a Category 3, please, right? So that's the latest. Jennifer, it clears out of southeast Louisiana by the time we get into Monday afternoon, right? It's not going to be a zooming storm. It's not going to stall at landfall, but it's not fast moving either, which is not good for especially those rainfall totals. So by Monday afternoon, it starts to kind of swing up there to the north. We'll probably still have some tail end stuff to deal with, some rainfall still lingering around the area. So that's the latest on Ida. Unfortunately, I don't have any very good news right now. Nothing I can see that's going to stop this thing from becoming very strong. If I did, I would let you know that. I don't have that right now. So we have to prepare like this is going to be a decent sized hurricane, probably a major hurricane, as far as, Cat 3 or above. And look, we just got to weather this and hopefully it doesn't end up too bad. But right now we have to go with what we see. You know where you live. You know how the water is. You know in the past hurricanes close to the coast there, how you dealt with these things and what the water does, right? It's going to happen with this one again, especially on the eastern side. So keep that in mind when making decisions here moving forward. Lots more to come in the next couple of days. And I'll keep y'all posted in the page. So stay with the page. I'll post some updates as we go through the evening, some different models and stuff. And I'll be back later tonight for Tropics After Dark. We'll talk about the latest stuff from the National Hurricane Center and see if anything changes with the tracks and anything else with Ida happening there. So thank y'all for joining. Thank you, Malone Roofing Services, for being our partner again this season. Really appreciate y'all. And I really appreciate you guys for following the page and sharing the page and tagging people and all kinds of stuff. So I'll